Hi guys, welcome back to ICSLand. So this video series is part of the version 1.2 of ICSLand, which we started in October 2019. In this short video, I want to show you a little bit the incident packet, which is what we give to the IC during game night. So if you watch the earlier videos on introduction, which are all labeled ICSLand version v12, 1.2, you've seen that there's an agenda of the night, and at some point during the night, once we have the tables, and after I've done the introduction on the game, we select one incident commander for each table, and we get this incident commander to come to the podium, and we do the briefing. And the idea is that Sunnyvale Department of Safety is actually calling for CERT volunteers to come and handle a situation after an earthquake in a specific neighborhood. So we give that packet to the ICs, but we also show it on screen so everybody can hear what it is. But I want to make sure you understand exactly what's in this packet because it is useful for the game. And you also need to make sure when the IC returns to the table you're managing that he looks at this packet properly. So the packet on the front page is a summary of the incident command system organization, so I'm not going to talk about that. Now if you open the packet, there are three things in this packet. There's a briefing, which we're going to look at. There are forms, and there is a transfer of command, which is also a form, but separated because at the end we want to do a proper transfer of command. So if you take the first, so the deck, which is the incident packet, so there's a title, and it will basically be the briefing. So it tells the ICs once you get back to Madrone Avenue, which is the location represented by the table, take some time to look at the content of this packet. So the briefing is so you're being deployed. So it's a summary of what's happening here after an earthquake of a certain magnitude, a certain time. And as you know, depending on the size of the teams, we have we can have 7, 8, 9, or we might even have sometimes 4 people to participate in the game. So the game is designed so that each chief has a position. So IC, operation, logistics, and planning. And each of them could have a scribe. There's also a safety officer, and there's also a role for a safety officer scribe possible. So you can have up to 10 people basically part of the group. Now, if you have smaller team, this is the order of which we actually recommend they do the organization. And again, if they want to take another one, it's possible. But depending on the team, especially if it's the first one, you really want to make sure that they're organized this way. So, I mean, there should be an IC, there should be an ops chief, a logistics chief, a planning chief. And then for scribes, ops probably need a scribe first, then IC, then logistic, then planning, then safety. So again, depending on the size of the team, you only have 5 people, where you only cover, the 4 chief and the ops scribe. You have 7, you add those 2. That's the idea. So this is a sort of the very high level briefing where we actually give them the objectives that they have to go after, and nothing totally non-obvious here. Objectives are identify hazards, search and treat victims, document and be prepared to report, and make sure that you pay particular attention to safety, and develop your incident action plan. So developing the incident action plan has been kind of a sort of a lot of long argument for quite some time during this training. But in the case here, what we really teach people to do is when you're facing a situation where there's been an incident, it's not that complicated. What do you do first? You go do a quick hazard survey, so you identify the high level hazards. Once you've done that, if there are hazards, you address them. Second thing is you go to neighbor damage assessments. And once you have that report, it will trigger actions to go process that. And by the way, you might have to create a medical area, or you might have to do other things. So a very high-level incident action plan is something they should be able to figure out. But if you watch the other videos, you will have seen that there's also a form. So during the game, we actually give them an incident action plan in case they couldn't figure out it by themselves. Now, next on the package, you have a very high-level view of the maps. So here, and then we give them two maps. So this map, if you've played the game before, you know that, and we'll see that in another video, you put that in the middle of the game board, and you put 4 magnets, and that's the major map around everybody is organized. I've dropped the second map here because when we ask them to do the transfer of command, what they should do is actually take this map after they play the game and actually use a pen and say, okay, the command post was here, we found a down power line there, we found 2 people trapped there, we find 2 people yelling here. So they have the map and they don't have to redraw the whole map in the transfer of command. They can just attach this extra map. Okay. Now, final section here is there are cheat sheets. So those cheat sheets have been developed for each of the different chiefs. So this is the incident commander chief. We actually use those same, I developed those cheat sheets, I think started to do that a couple of years ago. And we usually use those cheats during the drill as well. But I've dropped them here because, and I think you should make sure that each one of the chief gets his cheat. So incident commander, ops, planning, logistics, and safety. So it's a reminder of them what they have to do. And by the way, you could see that on top of the form here, on top of the sheet here, you have actually the basic incident command system, which is start with crowd survey, do neighbor assessment, send teams for search and rescue, do triage, da-di-da-da. Okay. So that's the element. Final section actually now, there was one more, is the forms list. This is an introduction to the different forms that exist. So you have the list of the forms, which we're going to be talking about in the 2 next tabs. But I've also developed a small workflow here, which I think is interesting for them to look at. So I will insist on that form when I do the briefing, but I think you should also make sure that they really keep this one in mind. So, and this form basically shows you that, well, you're going to get personnel, so people, these are the blue cards in the game. You're going to get equipment and supply. These are the white cards in the game. Those things should go first to logistics. And logistics will record the people on the master check-in, check-out form and the equipment on the inventory form. Now, once you have people, especially in logistics, you can assign those people to stay in logistics if you need them, or you can assign them to another section. And each section actually has also 3 forms. 1 form to check in and check out people. Once you've checked in somebody, let's say in operations, you have a form to track where this person is. Maybe, so let's say I have Nancy and I'm sending Nancy to do light search and rescue with Team Alpha. You need to know that. And finally, you have an event of action log that you need to track as well. And that should actually, you could use the form 201 for transfer of command for that, but there's a form here as well. So that's an important way to understand the workflow. And by the way, if somebody returns from being assigned, it goes back here to the master check-in form, to the check-in form, for the section. And if the person is actually dismissed for the section, it returns to logistics, and it should then be recorded as well into the master sheet form. And again, if you've seen the introduction, there is one extra or curveball action you can drop during the game, which is a recall for a volunteer. And this is a very good way to test if the team has very well understood that. So I'm going to cough in a second, so I'm going to pause for a minute.